Hello, and thanks for tuning into this bias question and answer session with our special guest today, who I've got two things in common with. Firstly, we share the same birthday, and second is that we've never played professional football. Unfortunately for me, that is where the comparison ends there, because he is a phenomenally successful director of football, and I am most definitely not. Phil, thanks for joining us. Also with us is the club's Director of Football Communications, Chris Wickham, who I was extremely fortunate to work under in the last decade at the club. He is one of a long line of Brentford fans in his family, and the club are extremely lucky to have him. Phil, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mark. You okay?
Yeah, very good, very good. Let's crack on. We've got a few questions to get through, and I'll ask mine first. Why hasn't Ivan Toney said sorry in public to either the football club or Brentford fans? I've seen a lot about him saying he's taking it on the chin. I watched the Stephen Bartlett interview, which I thought was fascinating, but what I got from that, I didn't see a lot of humility. So why hasn't he said sorry in public?
Well, Mark, it's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer the question, if I'm honest, because it's why hasn't he? I mean, I've not asked him why. I've not asked him why hasn't he? I guess that's one for him. What I will say is, I can think about, do I need an apology? Not really. Does Matthew need an apology? Well, I know for a fact he's kind of, he doesn't need one. So he's not that. So you could ask the question to me, and why haven't I asked him to make one? And obviously, the situation is quite complex. Obviously, some of it's in public, perhaps not all of it in public. You got a ban. Some of that was mitigated by some gambling issues, which is public knowledge, and therefore it becomes a slightly more complex issue than saying to somebody, you should go out there and then, despite the complex issues, you should go out there and make these statements. Now, what he said, the Stephen Bartlett interview and all that stuff, that's up to him. That he said that there was there was nothing in there that I thought was anything other than just him talking himself. There's nothing for me to get too involved in. And another thing I'll say is, when a player goes out the team, sometimes the big focus is on the players that are actually in the team. So obviously we want to look after Ivan, but at the same time, players have come in, players have done well, we're doing okay still. So no drama. Let's not create a bigger drama than we need to, really.
Okay, that's interesting, because I thought, if I was a head of a company and one of my star performers made themselves unavailable for several months, I think I would be asking for an apology. I think I would be thinking, maybe he's said sorry to his teammates. Maybe they're the most important ones to say sorry to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he has. Anyway, we're going to move on.
I'll answer that, Mark. So ask the question: what he's saying sorry for having a gambling issue. What's he apologising for? Do we take that into account? So it's a little bit more complicated. Don't forget that when he did the little video in Dubai, he did say sorry. He did come out and say, "Look, hands up." So there's different cases and different situations where you'd see them all slightly differently.
Yeah, it's interesting because he doesn't seem to think he's got a gambling problem. Is it a gambling issue and a gambling problem two different things?
Well, let's not go into that here. That's not
fair enough. I will move on. Okay, we've got some questions from Brentford fans here, and we got a few from Declan Moody. So thanks for doing that. In terms of our transfer approach, long term, are we going to focus more on high potential first team signings like Hickey and Sade, or bring through higher caliber B team players who can then make an impact a year or two later?
Both. So there's no reason to make these two things mutually exclusive. You can do both at the same time. It depends on doing transfers. Depends on who's available at the time, right? You can't sit there and say, well, we're only going to do this niche of transfer, and then handicap yourself if that isn't available in the quality, in the position, at the price, the availability that you need at a given moment. And obviously, there's limited time windows when we can do these things. There's another category which he's missed, which is the Ben Mee category. The experienced, out of contract player. There's another type we can do. Zanka, experienced player. Saman Godos, Neil Mopay became available through the summer. So there's different types. So I think it's the blend. You've got to get the blend right. It's not just one type or the other.
Yeah, let's talk about Maupay. Declan's also asked another question, which I know you're not going to answer, but he's saying when we signed Neil, it was stated we had a club option to sign him next summer. How much was that worth?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that, but we have got an option.
Do you? Is there any chance you think that would be brought forward to January? I don't know how well he's settled in. My take on it is that when you hear about players coming back, my instinct is no. However, with Neil, I thought I think this is going to work. How's he settled in since he's rejoined?
Good, absolutely great. Loves to be here. Loves the fans. You'll remember he scored for Brighton and didn't celebrate. He just, he loves this club. I like you, Mark. I kind of agree with that. There's some players you wouldn't bring back, and there's other players. We have brought other players back before, but this one I also had quite a good feeling about it. And even though it was done right at the end of the window, was specific circumstances behind that. So first of all, we did try and do some other players as well. Neil was a player that we knew from quite early on that was available to us if we wanted to do it. We tried to do some other things. They got delayed quite a bit because the David Raya situation got delayed quite a bit. So that was delayed. So that delayed us going in the market. So we acted quite late, which is a bit unusual for us, but it was always there to do if we needed to or wanted to do it. The more I thought about it, actually, the more I quite liked it. If you think about where we are now as a club, sort of middle of the Premier League, Neil was operating at that level with Brighton for a number of years and doing it well. And he's had a bad year at Everton, and that can happen sometimes. And I just felt he'd be a better fit to us than them potentially, and we know him and we like him. So, like you, I kind of had when we did it at the end. The more it got towards the end of the window, the more I thought about it, the more I quite liked the idea, and I thought it could work really well. So far, so good.
Great. We've got another question from Colin Moores. How do you think the recruitment model is holding up now we're in the Premiership? Our success in the Championship was driven by discovering hidden gems at a fraction of their true value, but this hasn't been what we're seeing so far in the Premier League. The fees that we've been paying are big. Is there no star that we've spotted playing second-tier French football? I'm assuming Brexit comes into this.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, so it depends what type you want. If you want a player who's ready-made straight into the Premier League, going to go straight in and play, pretty unlikely that player is going to be some hidden gem in the second league in some obscure country. And obviously a lot more difficult to just come in and play that. I mean, you can take young players in the Championship and sort of throw them in, and it's a bit more obviously forgiving at the level. Vitali Klimkin came in and went straight in and did really well from day one, for example. A bit harder to do that in the Premier League, obviously, for obvious reasons. Therefore, it just takes a bit more time. So, but you could take a Yarmouk, for example, obviously playing in Ukraine. You probably haven't heard of him. He's come in, but obviously it takes a year or so, year and a half to just adapt to England, you couldn't speak English, adapt to the style of play, get physically ready to play in the Premier League, because that's obviously a challenge as well. And then you start seeing come through. Michael Kigbe, same young player, made an impact this season. So it's just the better you get, the fewer and fewer players there are who are actually at your level. You're the level you're already at, and the chances are you'll have heard of them. And Brexit obviously played a part.
Let's talk about Vitali very, very quickly. How was it possible that we got a player that played for every level of international football for Germany, up to under 21 pretty much, and we only got him for around £500,000? How literally did that happen under the noses of everyone else in the football industry?
Don't know. What I'll do, I mean, I don't know what other clubs are thinking, right? So all we can do is act in the moment of where we are. I'll just give the credit all to our scouting team. Nothing to do with me. They spotted him. They picked him. They had the conversations around, well, what can we do here, and what might the price look like? And again, it was one that we sort of ummed and ahed a little bit about, and then thought, you know what, this looks like a great opportunity. And it's not sometimes it's not, you don't buy a player thinking, right, this player's going to go in, he's going to play here, he's going to do this. It's like, right, well, does it look like a high value opportunity for the quality of the player? Yes. Do we think he can impact it now? Yes. Do we think he's flexible to play some different positions? All these different factors. What's his age, physicality? All these things sort of play into it. And it just looked like a good deal to do.
Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the next one. I mean, it was a phenomenal transfer. Actually, you can pay tribute to the summer of 2019. Actually, I think that's probably the best ever transfer window this football club has had, and it's testament to the scouting team there, really. So let's have a look. Andrew Patterson. Brighton and other clubs have stated in the past, poor Thomas Frank here, that they already have a shortlist of potential next managers. Is that the case with Brentford? And as a follow-on, where does he see Thomas being in the future, or where will he be, sorry, Brentford for life?
So, okay, I'll answer it in stages then. So, no, I don't have a list of managers, partly because I'm not expecting him to go anywhere. So it'll be a lot of work now for not much. I mean, I've got other things to do, frankly. So it'll be a bit of a waste of my time, given that I don't expect him to go anywhere. And I could create that list, and then within 6 months is out of date anyway, because the ones who are the better ones who are available or potentially could be available have all gone elsewhere. So it's a bit of a waste of time. We'll address that question when we get to it. I mean, I'm not even thinking about it too much. Is he going to give a life? Well, yeah, define life. So how long does he want to go on for? And where's he going to go next? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think if Real Madrid came in for him, I think he'd probably want to go, if I'm honest. And that might be fair enough. Otherwise, I know he's really happy here. In fact, I was out with him last night, and he's really happy. I think he also sees himself one day maybe exploring the world. He's not just a football person. Pep Guardiola went to New York, didn't he, for a year? This sort of thing. So he's that sort of person. I see him doing that, and his family's now growing up and leaving, so he's got a bit of time in that respect as well. So hope that answers it.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to throw one in about the academy. Actually, we've just had news that and this is being filmed. Just let everyone know, this is just being filmed a couple of days before the Liverpool game. So we've just come back off the back of that great win against West Ham. There's a couple of open days next week for the academy, because I understand, and it's a Premier League rule, that from a certain period, is it next year or the year after, that the academy has to run, and each Premier League team has to have an academy from under 9 upwards. So there is going to be some developments at the training ground. Can you talk a little bit about the academy? And I was at the club when we had one. It was shut down, and I could definitely see the reasons for shutting it down. Rising to the Premier League means you've got to have this sort of this academy in place. Fewer than 1%, I understand, make it from the start of the academy up to playing a Premier League first team. Is that something that makes you uncomfortable? Are we going to be careful this time around to not start, selling the dream that hard? What's your thoughts?
Well, many thoughts. Where shall I start with it? So let's go back to when we closed it down. When we closed it down, we had no money. We had some money, but we were spending it. We think about running an academy, you're spending it on 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And as you say, the chances are they're not going to actually play for your team. When you've got limited resources and you want to achieve something like get promoted, well, let's take those resources and actually put it toward getting promoted. So, people think it was a cost-saving thing and all the rest of it. And, they were definitely easier to control the costs. But equally, you could easily spend even more money on that B team if you wanted to, buying players and wages and all the rest of it and staff. The key point being that, obviously, when we got promoted, the person who scored the goal to be Bournemouth was Marcus Forss. And Mads Bech Sorensen played a significant role. Mads Røslev came in a significant role. Mads Bidstrup was coming in and playing a role. So those players coming in there in the B from either progressing from the B team or still in the B team who were making direct impacts. So in terms of where your money was being spent, you were spending it impacting your chance of promotion, and that was key. And then obviously Forss has gone on and Alex Gilbert was sold on without playing for our first team, this sort of thing. So that's that. So when we get promoted, obviously we got more resource. So you can start thinking about how do we develop players? Should we now open an academy? What would be the benefits of that? Clearly, being in the Premier League, you want a Cat 1 academy. We were only Cat 2 in the Championship, which is extra resource and investment. The Premier League made us do it, but there was other reasons that it would have been sensible for us to do it anyway. For example, if you want to play in Europe, you have to run 5 different age groups in the club. That's a UEFA requirement. So had we qualified for Europe last year, we would have obviously had to look for a way around that. We had the Premier League, how would you solve this problem? And they said, well, just open an academy. That's the solution. I think they liked the idea that obviously being all Premier League clubs would be part of the Triple P program, which is their flagship youth development program. So, and the other reason is obviously with Brexit, can't bring in easily a Mads Bexonsson or Mads Roslev now, or a Mads Bidstrup. That's a lot harder to do. So, and also what that does is, because that applies to all other English clubs, they also now, there's this mad crazy drive to get in like the best player in a Cat 3 academy. Let's just take him and buy him, and I can't see how many of these players are going to, in say League 1 and League 2 clubs, how many of their academy players are actually going to go and play for the first team, because anyone of any promise is getting sort of picked off by the Cat 1 clubs, stuck in Cat 1 clubs, and the price of those players going up and up and up, which would have been the natural target for some of our B team, right, historically. So that supply line of players in the B team also was being, not cut off, but certainly the competition was getting higher for it. So many different reasons why it makes sense to reopen it, not just because the Premier League asked us to do it, or the regulations changed. We may well have, I think we likely would have ended up in that situation anyway.
So I think from what I understand, and I'm assuming it's the same from when I was there, that Category 1 gives you a bit more rights in terms of compensation of players, and is there an aspect that you're less likely to be poached, or if other clubs are coming in, you are going to be compensated more? I asked that because Queen's Park Rangers reckon they've lost 12 players to Cat 1 clubs, and they've got around 750 grand total for those players. So that makes it very difficult for clubs like them to actually, why run an academy if that's the case?
Well, that's a question. I mean, the compensation has gone up recently. They've recognised and increased the compensation you have to pay for academy players. Plus, of course, there's a fixed amount, and there's also, you have to negotiate if the player's been offered a scholarship, whatever. You have to, you can't just pay a fixed amount and take them out. Unfortunately, overseas clubs can do that. That's a bit of an issue with under 24 players out of contract. So you can't protect the players completely forever and ever. Look, there's lots of differences between Cat 1 and the lower categories. Number one is you're required to build more infrastructure. You're required to have more staff and more provision to the players. In theory, you should have better players. You obviously play all the other Cat 1 teams, and in theory they should be better clubs. So you play a high level of competition. That's in theory going to develop your players better. You get more money given to you as a grant, because your costs are higher. You get more compensation if the players leave. So there's many benefits to it, but obviously, the best Cat 1 academies now are very expensive to run.
Okay, great. Moving on to something completely different. This is from Graham Hancock, women's football. What is the target date for Brentford women's football team to be playing in the WSL?
There's no target date. If you think about what we did at Brentford, the first team, we kind of grew it organically. We didn't just take multi-billionaire and throw huge money at it. What we did is we grew it slowly and steadily, and that's what we'll do with the women's team as well. It won't be like throw lots of money at it. It will grow. It will develop. And the people who are running it at the minute, I'm not personally involved in it. Okay, so but other people in the club are, and they've been involved for years. Like Amy's been involved for years and years and years and done a fantastic job. So let's not step across her. Let's support her to keep doing a good job. Let's keep growing it, and see, like with the first team, let's see where we get to from low down. Let's see how high we can get.
I think people underestimate the costs involved as well. Charlton recently put out that their team cost £1 million a year to run, and they're not in the WSL. So even within women's football, it shouldn't be perhaps underestimated the cost if you wanted to go in and sort of parachute Brentford women's team into the top tier, which, like you, I'm not in favour of. That's still a significant amount of the turnover. That
would cost millions and millions just to sort of guarantee to get them up there. Brighton are a WSL team, and they put in, like Tony Bloom puts in about £5 million a year to run them, and obviously that's great, but they're ahead of us, right? In their trajectory as a club, they're way ahead of us. So we're catching up. So step by step. I don't think there's a need to throw loads of money to get them there. I think if we work together and apply some of the similar principles, we should have the same, hopefully, successes as Brentford had in eventually getting there without necessarily catapulting, super. I mean, I was there for 6 years before we got promoted. It took a few years to do it.
No, that's right. Okay, half time. So this is the half time funny from Simon Hoyle, which is more affectionately known as Harry Potter amongst the Brentford crowd. And Chris, I do want your input into this one because I know you will have an opinion on it. Your best half time meal. Now he says excluding corporate. Now I'm assuming when you move into these circles when you're attending games, you're in that sort of sphere anyway in terms of the boardroom. I'm going to open this out. Your best meal. But however, what has been the ground that you've gone to that's absolutely blown you away? For me, and I'm not moving in these Premier League boardroom circles, I was really impressed with Aston Villa. Everything was claret and blue. The badge was there. The trophies are in the tunnel. Everything seemed to be in place. So, okay, meals and facilities.
Yeah, I'm answer the trophies in the tunnel thing. I went to Villa in the Championship and I saw the trophies in the tunnels, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure I would have done that necessarily that way. If you're in the Championship, here's our trophies. Like, does it mean anything when you're in the Championship? I don't know. Anyway, that's when I went in the tunnel years ago. Right, this is when they were in the Championship as well, years and years ago. And obviously they've done amazing. They can have them now because they're doing great. Right. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a massive fan of the boardroom, bonhomie. In fact, I don't go in our boardroom at home games. I'm up in a box where I invite coaches, contacts, agents. It's a great networking opportunity. That's what I do. But in terms of away games, all right, I'll tell you a little story. So we went to Man United and we lost there. You might have noticed that we conceded it twice in injury time.
Yeah, I did notice.
Yeah. And but I think we have won every game since though, haven't we? Pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So my youngest son, who's 9, came along, and he wanted to go to the game, and I'm very aware that because I have to go to those venues and that location, he has to come with me. That his indoctrination into going to football matches is very, very different to me going to Newcastle in the 1980s on the terraces, in the smoke and the smell of the brewery and all the rest of it. So anyway, so we go in and we sat down for lunch, and they said, "Oh, we've got a guest chef for his cooking lunch." I don't know who's that, and they went, "Oh, it's Tom Kerridge is cooking lunch in this room." So Tom Kerridge cooked lunch, which was amazing lunch, by the way. And then when we left, they had these kind of goodie bags, and it's funny you should mention it because I've actually got it sitting on my desk here. So they give us all a Tom Kerridge book to take home, right? And I'm, like I said, I'm acutely aware of how this is like. This is not football for my youngest son. This is like, I'm going to have to do something to take him to some, non-league ground, or have normal food like pies and things, and not Tom. This is not normal. Tom Kerridge does not cook your lunch. This only happens in places like Man United. So it's slightly. I'm actually slightly shameful actually. Sitting there and doing this. I consider myself a normal fan, and then I look and think, Christ, I'm bringing up my kids such a bad way. Honestly.
Chris, I'm going to bring you in on that because I know you're a connoisseur. So let's have some of your nice food experiences, or maybe the favourite one.
So in terms of general facilities for football and working as we do, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is the best I've ever been to. It's in terms of building for media, for broadcasters, and indeed even for players. In terms of the away player facilities, to give you an indication, Manchester United and Liverpool, both their dressing rooms are designed to be difficult for the away clubs. They're not comparative. I think one of the things that it's key for UEFA and for hosting big matches is reasonable comparative accommodation for teams, and neither of those two clubs are particularly good at that. It might give them a home advantage, but it doesn't help if you're the opposition team. Whilst Tottenham's facilities are outstanding, and yes, it has to be said they do have the best buffet as well. Chelsea was good for a number of years, but I think the restrictions imposed on them by their previous ownership had a bit of a knock. It was a good old lunch there this year, has to be said, but Tottenham is still standing out as the market leader currently.
Tottenham. This is the other thing. Is Tottenham is in their kind of boardroom. This is I don't know, Mark. Talking to. I mean, this is biased. I'm not sure this is the sort of conversation we're having, but the boardroom there, when you're sitting there, they have like kind of heated seats outside, And we went there. First time was when it was empty because we played obviously the League Cup semi-final. It was freezing. It was like January, and I sat down and turned the heating on. I thought, I'll tell you what, like this is nice. It's like, part of me, looks at things. Heated seats are ridiculous, and then I just sort of said to John Varney, why is my seat not heated in Brentford? Why was this design error made? And Matthew, do you not know a heated seat? Anyway, he said what he was going to do was raise ticket prices for the fans to give me a heated seat. So I said that's fine, no, right on with that.
Yeah, it's I think we prefer Gallagate, Joe Allen, Beardsley, Waddle. Yeah, definitely non-heated seats for sure. Okay, we're gonna move on. I enjoyed that, and I knew Chris's contribution would be superb. Okay, talking about grassroots, we can move on to Wheatsheaf Park. Now, I've known that venue for decades, and it was really, really sad to see Staines go bust, and they exist on paper effectively, don't they, at the moment? And I really do hope that, not necessarily financial, but if they do find their way getting back as a club, that our club can give them not necessarily maybe financial support, but maybe some emotional and some logistical support in terms of that, because they were a really big part of the community in Staines. Tell us about that. It seems a very good idea, but it's had its difficulties, which we don't have to talk about. It's been resolved now. It's a sign of us growing as a club, isn't it? Having a venue like that.
Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of sense. So there was reasons to do it. Number one was, academy-wise, certain regulations around certain fixtures have to be played in front of spectators. So you need a stadium if you play it in a stadium. So we'd go to like Woking, or we'd been around the place, Wimbledon, and hosted us. And B team games have been in these stadiums as well. So good to be able to have a venue to just call our own to do it in, rather than have to negotiate and pay obviously fees to some other clubs. Also, we could play in our own stadium, but obviously we tried to protect the pitch. We had a rugby team on at the time when we started this kind of idea, so we wanted to protect the pitch for the first team. We talked about the women's team as well. Potentially having a venue where they can also use it if they wish. I know they've also had opportunities to play in our stadium and prefer to play where they are as well, which is great because they put performance first rather than playing in a strange venue, even though they have played in our home stadium. So many reasons why just very, very useful to have another venue. Plus we put some money into it and done the pitch, so we're kind of maintaining it and keeping it good for future, for wherever that stadium ends up, as you say, with Staines or otherwise. So yeah, we don't own it, we're leasing it. So yeah, just overall good project, and yeah, just great job by John Varney's team, actually, who the ones, the operations and stadium side is them. So great job by them. Nothing to do really with the football. I had nothing to do with it, frankly, other than saying that sounds good, let's do that.
Great. Okay, going to move on now for other questions. January transfer window. Karen Lewis, she's saying, is there going to be any additions in January to cover perhaps Wico, as we're weak in that area, and because we're going to lose Brian and Johan to the African Nations Cup, and the possibility Ivan will move on. But I did see Thomas saying he wouldn't like to see him. I mean, my take on it is that the strategy still is generally that you want to sell in January because that's where the premium prices maybe are, and then you buy in the summer. However, situations change. Have you fined Brian for changing from France to Cameroon yet? Because I definitely would have done that. But talk about that, and about Ivan's possibility of moving and how it's going to shape up in January, because they're two huge players to lose, aren't they?
So just let's be clear, Mark. So far, in half an hour, you've managed to fine Ivan Toney and you've fined Brian and Burton. You've got. I mean, by the end of this interview, you'll have had the whole squad fined and disciplined for. And then you wondered why at the start you said you weren't a successful sporting director, and you wonder why. Just a little tip there. True. Finding people doesn't necessarily always have the right impact you want it to. But in terms of
my gunboat diplomacy has not worked well. I mean, I don't work for the club now, so that tells you all you need to know, to be honest. Okay, I'll let you answer that one. Lots and lots of sort of jigsaw puzzles there, and things moving around, aren't they, in January?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's people like a clean narrative on transfers. Oh, well, we do this and we do that, and we don't do this and we don't do that, and it's just not true. It's always a moving picture. So Rico gets injured, left back with Garnick got it covered. Right, got Rico Arrington move over there, and you can play that side. So brilliant, and then they both get injured. So clearly, we need to at least have a look at that situation. Say, well, what is out there? Is there a player who can help us short term? Is there a player it's long term? That's my front door, by the way. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm going to ignore it.
Probably Ivan, isn't it? Looking for me.
Possibly Ivan and Brian together. Their day off today. So anyway, yeah. So there's no single narrative now. We'll look at the left back situation. Who knows what we'll do anything? It comes down to availability of players, whether we can do something which makes sense long term. There's no point in bringing a player in and then Rico just takes them out of the team next year. If they spend a lot of money on them and Rico's a better player, so what's the point? Can we cover it? We can play there. The other players can do the job. We can play with 3 centre backs. There's all sorts of flexibility there that we can cover it. In terms of selling players, you mentioned Ivan. Genuinely no clue. Like there's a lot of noise out there, which is just nonsense, as far as I can tell. He's worth this. He's worth that. He's there. Whatever. Clearly, we need him in January because we've got players going to the African Cup of Nations. Sharda and Keelan Spot are both injured now, so let's see where their fitness is in January, and Neil Maupay as well. So, yeah, it's a totally moving feast. I mean, obviously, in general, you'd like to sell players at the top of the market if and when you need to sell a player and buy cheaper. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, I can't really give any specifics about what we'll do this January particularly.
Okay, let's move on. Steve from Baltimore. We know that culture is an important part of our club, and you've had an excellent recipe for our ascension to the Premier League. Can you speak about what tweaks or changes in course there may need to be for us to remain a Premier League team or to move on to maybe European football?
In terms of the culture?
Well, I think actually this, I think he's saying that we've had a great culture. What, is there any tweaks that need to be made?
Don't think so. I think we need to. So if let's take the ambition of trying to get into European football. What needs to happen? Well, we need to maintain a good level. And keep getting better, which is generally our aim, or get lucky. One of the two. That's another strategy. Or not a strategy, but it's another way of doing it. So we can do that. There's and if you're going to get better, how do you do that? Well, you can. We've got good players at the minute. We can work with them so they get better individually and collectively. What's one way of getting better. Or we can buy players in. It's another way of getting better. So clearly, player trading is that's kind of always the aim, but not necessarily to get better now today, but to get better maybe 2 and 3 years down the line. That can often be the way as well. While Nathan Collins done great for us, coming at the team now, I don't for one second think he's the best he'll ever be. I think he'll be levels above that in 2, 3, 4 years' time when he's 25, 26, 27, right? He's only 22 now. So therefore you put this, you ask the question, well, when can we get in Europe? How is it better to try and go all in and try and do it this season and throw lots of money at it, but regret the consequences if you fail? Or is it better just to keep as we're doing steadily, and then like we got promoted? Oh, now we're in Europe, and then we can progress again. Next step.
Okay, let's move on to the 2 great subjects: referees and VAR. So, it's been a lot of noise. I hopefully wouldn't see a Brentford statement similar to what's been put out by other Premier League clubs. I personally don't think that's helpful to referees or to the system itself. How do you think VAR is working? I think referees have got a really tough job. We want them to be upskilled all the time. There needs to be that. But I don't think the answer is the head going out and apologising every Saturday after the latest cock-up, which that ultimately is well intentioned, but I don't think that helps in actually getting on board with VAR and referees interacting with VAR and the whole system. What's your thoughts on it? What needs to be improved, if anything? It seems to be part of Premier League life now, so we have to get used to it, I guess.
Yeah, it won't go anywhere. It's not going to disappear. So my view is, when Howard Webb came in at the start of this year, he took the time to go around with a guy called Tony Scholes from the Premier League, to go around all the Premier League clubs. So we met him and had a really good chat. And he's a really good guy. I liked him a lot. He speaks a lot of sense, a lot of experience, and I'm pretty confident that given time he'll do a good job. But it'll take a bit of time, right? I mean, he was talking about some changes he want to make. Well, change doesn't happen overnight, you know, and you learn all the time. So you could talk about upskilling people, more qualified people. You could talk about the processes, as you saw with the Liverpool disallowed goal against Tottenham. Processes weren't there. They learned from that experience. That's taken years in other sports to get right. A couple of things I sort of mentioned to him that I said, like, one thing is we just got to get used to the idea that stop chasing perfection. Like, you're not going to design a system which is flawless and perfect. And there will still be errors and grey areas, like the Arsenal goal. Sorry, the Newcastle goal against Arsenal last weekend, with the push on the shove in the back. To me, that they came out and they made a statement about that. To me, it was fine. That was like, you couldn't tell. We didn't have the angle to say it was definitely out or in. Maybe VAR did. You could argue that it was a slight push. VAR shouldn't intervene. But that's we all want it not to intervene and overrule every decision slightly and re-referee the game. We all probably agree with that principle, or most of us would say that. So it didn't, as it should. And there was no clear and obvious offside, so it shouldn't overrule that either and just sort of guess. So to me, absolutely fine. But this idea that we're somehow trying to chase perfection is leading to infinitely many checks, so slow, and it just then ruin the game. So it ends up being counterproductive from the starting point of we get under pressure. The referees get under pressure not to make mistakes, and it ends up ruining the game another way. So if we all stop from the point of view of, look, we'll accept some error here, it's all fine. There's margins for error, and then not come out and whinge when it slightly goes against us, either way. We find then they can quicken it up and then take it out of the game and have it less interfering with the game. So that was the first thing. Second thing is there's a lot to learn from other sports how they do it. In terms of you listen to you can hear the referee in the Rugby World Cup, right? You can hear him speaking out and explaining what he's doing and why he's doing it, which is great. And it's a different sport. Probably wouldn't necessarily work all the time in football, but American football referees, they talk to the crowd. NBA, they will review it on a screen and then they'll talk into the camera and say, this is the decision, this is why we're making it. All great stuff. Cricket, there's many other sports that do some really good stuff around this. They've done it for a lot longer than football, and there's some learnings to take from it. But the fundamental problem is this well, I also said to them that you can sort out, look, far better to actually get on top of the play acting and the time wasting and the delays and restarts and all that stuff, which they've done. I said that'll improve the game immeasurably compared to this infinite, ever decreasing circle of trying to find perfection on VAR. And I said, surely that's a sensible starting point. And they said, well, other clubs want perfection. So if that's their starting point, we'll be in this battle forever.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. Okay, we're going to take a slight shift, and it's always about football cliches and things that we don't, that people take for granted or think are true and actually are probably not. People talk in the game, pundits, football fans, managers, players, they talk about momentum. So it could be argued that Brentford have momentum at the moment, coming into games at the moment. Is when it actually comes down to it, when we're playing another team on a Saturday, is that rubbish?
Yeah, probably. I've not seen any evidence. I think it's been studied, possibly in football, other sports, momentum, hot hands in NBA. I think it's been proved. I think it's been proved as largely a fallacy. Well, I'm not up to date on the research on this stuff, but I guess it probably is. I mean, yeah, I think it's just more that people like to call momentum when we as human beings are not very good at understanding randomness. We like to have a reason for everything. So it's the reason as opposed to just, well, it happened to be. We won the last 3 games, which has been obviously good for us, having been in a run of not winning games. So to beat Burnley must have been an incredible effort to break the negative momentum. How did we break the negative momentum of actually going and then beating Burnley? Don't know. Maybe we just beat the Burnley. I don't know. And then we won the next couple as well. You could look at Chelsea, right? The Chelsea game is a good example. First half, we weren't very good. They could have scored 2 or 3. So, different day. We lose that game, and there's no weird suddenly saying, well, we look like we've got good momentum at the minute, but actually we don't, do we? Because West Ham, they should have gone 3-1 up first half Saturday. Should have done. Didn't. We won 3-2. So we've got great momentum now. Whatever.
I suppose it goes for past form as well. I mean, I remember going to Yeovil, never get a result. Gillingham, never get a result. Tranmere, they beat us home and away. We've done over West Ham 5 times in a row. We've gone to Stamford Bridge and won 3 times. I suppose it's the same for past form. Is that rubbish as well? It's just, I'm just thinking of players going into the dressing room at Stamford Bridge next season and thinking, we got these guys. We've done them before. We can do it again. Does that count for anything at all? Or is that we can consign that to the rubbish pile as well?
Well, you can definitely use it as positive, energy and positive sort of sentiment. But I suspect it doesn't have a lot of impact. The past results, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, so let's make an example. So let's say we get 20 people, 19 people, 19 Premier League clubs. Let's say 19 people, and we give them all a coin, and we have to flip a coin. Each 19 people. So pretty obviously, some people will get a mixture of heads and tails. You'll get 1 or 2 people will get like a run of heads. And 1 person will get a run of tails. And let's say heads is winning and tails is losing. So 1 person will go, one of your 19 opponents will be a run of heads, and they'll go, ooh, we won a few in a row there. Wow, we're doing well against them. And someone will get a run of tails, and he'll go, oh, we're not doing very well. Newcastle, we're hopeless against Newcastle, aren't we? I mean, frankly, although they are a good team, so maybe now they're a good team. And it's obviously a long way to go, and it's a tough venue to play at. It's just normal. Like if you put it in that context of just each game's a coin flip, it can go either way. You will see these runs. Sometimes we'll get a run of heads and lots of wins against a team, and sometimes we'll get a run of tails and lots of defeats against a team, and sometimes it'll be a bit of a mixture. Most times it'll be a bit of a mixture in some order, win a couple, lose a couple sort of thing. Couple of heads, couple of tails, and that's just the way it is. That's just randomness, right? There's nothing in it really.
Okay, moving on. And this is one for you really personally, actually, just in terms of you interact with a lot of people in the game. And let's think of it UK-wise rather than abroad. Who's the one person that you admire in the game in the UK, which actually you think is honest, trustworthy, is out for, and he's also got the game's best interest, or she's got the game's best interest at heart? Do any names spring to mind?
Yeah, Matthew. I'm not saying that. No,
not included.
No, I know you don't want to hear him. I know you don't want to hear, but he's the obvious first person that I think of. I know him very well. I'm not just he's my boss. I mean, I'm not just trying to suck up to him, but genuinely, like when we, like for example, when we meet Howard, when we have that conversation with him, and he's in that meeting, he's also talking from a point of view of not, Brentford should get more decisions. Brentford, look at this decision against Brentford, but genuinely, what's good for the game, what's good for, and a lot of decisions, the new regulator or whatever is going to come in, and we kind of try to lead the way in that stuff. So, with the decision making around, obviously we've got Bees United representative on our board. This is pretty unusual in football. We try and engage with the fans. We try and, make it affordable. We don't have a shirt every, we have a shirt every other year. We try and do lots and lots of things, and he's fully behind all that stuff. So I think we're at the forefront, frankly, diversity of our board, trying to do the right things in terms of staff. Many issues. We don't always get it right. I mean, we mess it up sometimes. Football, non-football, whatever. We lose games. We get things wrong. It happens. That's just life. But we always try and do the right thing. So he's the first person. He's the first person that springs to mind. But I guess you're asking for people outside of here, right? You're looking for other people. I don't know. I know that everyone speaks well of Tony Bloom. I know Matthew won't want to hear that.
Except for Matthew.
Say again?
Except for Matthew.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. But I always hear good things, and Brighton have done an amazing job as well. And this is the people I like seeing at games. I like seeing David Weir, and obviously he worked here, slightly overlapped with my time, but not by much. But he's just a nice guy, and he's there as well, obviously. So So there are some really nice people. Dean Smith was at our game last week. Again, just a great guy, just a really nice fella. Richard O'Kelly, assistant's coming to a game soon. So lots of people. I can't really pick someone and say, yeah, they're. I really admire. I really want to be them. I don't really think that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to sort of Europe, and we joined the Union of European Clubs earlier this year. Tell me why that is. I'm assuming this is some sort of influencing body. There's TV deals, there's regulations, trying to keep UEFA honest. Is that what this group is all about?
Right. So first of all, I'm not personally on those conversations, but as we grow as a club, we need to sort of think about our role in terms of wider football, and I think the key thing for us is just keeping our finger on the pulse in terms of information, what's happening out there, and what are the potential trends, and how do we adapt ourselves ahead of time to make sure that we're on the ball and nothing catches us out. I don't see us necessarily as involved in these things to have a big lobbying voice and try and drive change. And the reason for that is not because we don't have a conscience or an idea of how things could be different or better, but more or less we're so stretched trying to make sure Brentford stays solid that we'll get diverted by trying to change football or influence football and take our eye off the ball about what's happening here. And suddenly we're in the Championship and no one cares about us anymore. You know what I mean? So that's we just need to be in the right meetings at the right times, influence if we can, if it's not, but not become a big lobbying group. We're a football club. We just like to play football.
Sure. Okay. Well, a couple of questions to go. What's your sort of review of the season so far? If you were a teacher, how many marks out of 10 would you perhaps give us? Considering, we've had a lot of injuries, to key players, the players that have come in. I mean, you just look at the game on Saturday against West Ham. It was just a superb performance, especially second half, considering that and I don't think we've had this many players injured in our squad for a good 20 years. I think, it seemed for a length of period as well. How do you think it's gone so far?
I mean, sort of much of a continuation of last year, really. I mean, are we not ninth in the table right now? I mean, obviously, I don't know when you'll send this out to people, but right now we're ninth. Last year we were ninth, and actually our underlying kind of performance metrics, if you like, are slightly better than last year. So Thomas will say to me, "We've got injuries. We should, maybe we buy a player." And I'll say, "Look, you're better than you were last year, so maybe we should just have more injuries." This seems to be working. It seems to be working quite well. And suspensions, bans, it's great. But in the context of that, really good. And also, it's only by having injuries that you get to suddenly have to put Michael Olakigbe or Yeho Yarmolyuk onto the pitch, and then suddenly you learn something about them, and then all of a sudden you go, actually, Christ, we've got a player here. And suddenly where maybe we thought, should we buy a midfielder next year? It's actually, how do we get Yeho into the team next year? Can he be our best midfield player long term? These are the questions you start having, not can we get him on the pitch because, if you're one up, he's defending again, you want to, you don't want to take any risk. Is it a risk to put a young player in, and suddenly you think all those questions disappear. You go, no, he's shown he can do it. And then you spot momentum in his career in terms of building that forward and forward progression for him. Progression's a better word, not momentum. Forward progression for his career, as opposed to any other, loan him out or these sort of questions. So in the context of loads of injuries, performances have been very solid, slightly better than last year, underlying metrics, and opportunities for young players, which is what you need at some point in some way. So you can't, that's not a score out of 10, but, overall you can't complain. And you look at the teams above us and you think, well, long term, how can we overtake them? That's the big question. But there's some big clubs spending a lot of money, so we'll keep chipping away at them.
Super. Oh, okay. We're going to wrap it up there now. I just want to say thanks, Phil, and thanks, Chris, for facilitating that. This will be out on the day of the AGM. You would have been sent this link to to have a look at. I just want to say, from a bias point of view, anyone watching this video, if you are a bias member, please get someone to join. It's absolutely free. You'll see the link details in the description below. We've got currently 3,000 members. You get one person, just one person. We double our membership, 6,000, and we become a voice within the football club to feed back into them how the supporters feel. Just want to say thanks very much to you, Phil, for this fascinating conversation, and to Chris as well.